with some exercises on both bonds payable and a notes payable. So we're going to do both, and we'll start with exercise number 7. So we'll do a discount and a premium, just kind of in a short introduction on a bond, and then we'll get into a full life of a bond. So exercise 14-7, 14-52, thank you. On this one, Chowlin Corporation issued 100,000 of 10% bonds dated January 1, 2013, and they sold them for $96,832.72. So that means that the market needed more or less than 10%? More. So they sold it at a discount because the difference between the sale price and the face value is in effect extra interest for the market to make up for the bond not paying enough for a similar risk. The bonds are due on December 31st, 2015. Interest is paid June 30 and December 31st. So they just want to record the issuance of the bond and the first 2 interest payments. And then we'll do the flip here in a second. So 2013, January 1, you have a debit to cash. And the cash is going to be the $96,832.72, the issue price at a discount. You're then going to debit discount. For the $3,167.28. And then the credit is the full face, 100,000 bonds payable. Any problems such as this, and we'll be doing more of them, but you're gonna have a table with the date, starting with January 1, the issue date, and then we have June 30 and 12/31. You're going to have the cash, which is always going to be a credit. We'll calculate that here in a second. We have the interest expense. Which is always going to be a debit. And we have the amortization. And in this case, the amortization is going to be a credit because we're amortizing a discount. When we get to the next problem, which is a premium, we'll be debiting the premium on bonds payable, because this is a contra liability account, lowering the liability account, whereas if you sell a bond at a premium, that's an adjunct liability account adding to the overall liability. So when we record that, you'll see here in a second. And then we have the book value of the bond, the carrying value of the bond, which on the date of the sale is the full $96,832.72. So this is a $100,000 face value bond paying 10% annual interest. So how much cash is this bond paying? It's semi-annually. So how much is it going to pay all for a whole year? 10% of 100,000 is $10,000. Going to pay it in 2 equal installments. So $5,000 on June 30 and December 31st. It says in the problem here that the bonds were issued to yield 11%. So it gave us what the market rate was. So you're always going to use the market rate to calculate interest expense, because that is in effect what you're paying in interest. You're not just paying the cash, but you didn't receive the full face value of the bond, so the discount is part of the interest expense throughout the life of the bond. So the interest expense is going to be higher than $5,000 because that's what the market demanded. So if you take the book value, $96,332.72, and multiply it by 5.5, half of the 11% yield, you will get $5,325.80. That's a difference of $325.80, God bless you, that is in excess of the cash that you paid. So that's the extra interest that you gave the bondholders. So now, which direction does this book value need to go? It needs to go up because at the end it needs to be equal to $100,000. So it goes to $97,158.52. And then on 12/31/2013, multiply that times 5.5%. $5,343.72, $343.72 in amortization, and we now have $97,502.24. So on June 30, we're going to debit interest expense we're going to credit the discount on bonds payable. And we're going to credit cash. So the discount on bonds payable for the first cash interest payment was $5,325.80. The amortization to the discount was the $325.80, and the cash is $5,000. Same basic entry on December 31st. So if you take these same 3 accounts, I'll just save some time. Debit to interest expense, credit to discount on bonds payable, and a credit to cash. Only now the interest is $5,343.72. The amortization is $343.72, and the cash is once again $5,000. Questions on this thus far?
For the 5,343, how did you get that one?
Okay, the 343 is you take the new book value at the end of June 30th, the 97,158.52. Here, let me walk over here so the camera follows me. The 97,158.52, and you multiply that by the 5.5%, and I'll just put that up here. And that gives you the 5,343.72. All right? Any other questions on this one before we do a premium? Yes, sir.
So we're saying that so the companies, they're the ones that are accepting cash, correct?
Right.
And then so the bonds payable, that $100,000.
Yes.
Where is that going? Is that going?
That's a liability. It's a long-term liability. Yeah.
And so down there where the discount is.
That's a contra liability. So the way it would be presented on the balance sheet is one of two ways. You'd either have bonds payable net, and then you would just show the 96,832.72, or you would have bonds payable 100,000 less discount on bonds payable for the 3,167.28. Yes, the bondholder, you're sending checks out every 6 months to the holders of the bond, whether it's one person or 100 people, Okay? Everybody good with this one? All right, the very next one. Taylor Company issues 100,000 of 13% bonds on January 1. They pay semi-annual interest on June 30 and December 31st. And then we'll just do requirement number one. Requirement number one is that assume the bond sells. I'm sorry, I'm not doing 9. I'm doing 8. Polk Incorporated, because 9 is a suggested homework problem. Polk issued 200,000 of 13% bonds on July 1 for 206,801.60. They were dated January 1, pay interest each June 30 and December, and they're due, and they issued to yield a 12% interest. So now we have a bond that is being sold at a premium. So this is number 8 on the same page. So we're receiving 206,801.60, and now we're having an adjunct liability on premium on bonds payable. For the 6,801.60. So the book value on January, well, actually, let me change the dates on us too. It was issued on July 1st, 13, and then we have 12/31, 13, and June 30, 14. But the book value is the 206,801.60. Because we're now amortizing a premium rather than a discount, we're going to be debiting the amortization. The cash is still a credit, interest expense is still a debit. Okay? So this is a $200,000 bond that is paying 13% interest. So in total, on an annual basis, how much interest, cash interest, is it going to pay? 13 times 2 is 26,000. Divide it in half, 13,000 every 6 months.
How'd you get that?
The bond has a face interest rate of 13%. Okay? It has a face value of $200,000. So 13% times 200,000 is $26,000 per year, paid in 2 equal installments of 13,000 each. Okay? The effective yield is only 12%, because that's what the market needed on that day to make a similar type investment for similar risk. So interest expense is going to be based on what? 6%, half of the 12% yield. So if you multiply 6% times the 206,801.60, you get 12,408.10. A difference of $591.90. And this you're going to do what with? Subtract it, because once again, when this matures, the book value of this debt plus the premium has to be $200,000, the face value of the bond. So that leaves you 206, 209.70. Multiplied by 6%, you get 12,372.58. A difference of $627.42. And now you only have a book value of 205,582.28. Yes.
So they're the days like January 1st or?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll change that. This is July 1. This is December 31. And then 2014 on June 30. All right, so when we recorded the issuance of the bond, the adjunct liability account was a credit. So now when we're amortizing it, we need to debit the premium on bonds payable. So the December 31st entry is going to be interest expense, a debit of $12,408.10. Amortization of the premium on bonds payable is $591.90, and the cash is $13,000. All right, let's do one more before we get into non-interest bearing notes. Let's do problem number 6 on page 58. So problem number 6 on page 58. What's that? problem. Thank you. And on this one, Foster Incorporated sold 500,000 of 12% bonds on January 1, 2013 for $407,143.47. This discount yielded a 14% interest rate. And then, once again, as always, we've got payments of cash on June 30 and December 31st annually. All right? So on this one, we received $470,143.47. This was a discount on bonds payable. Of 53, 6, $29,856.53. I did that in my head, so feel free to check it. Book value starts out at $471.43.47. And where's it going to end up? $500,000. This was a 12% bond, so 12% times 500,000 is $60,000 a year, right? 12 times 5, $60,000 a year paid in 2 equal installments, $30,000 each. For the next 4 years. It was sold at a discount. The market wanted more interest than we were paying in cash. So the market needed 14% interest to make this investment. So 14% interest on an annual basis is 7% times the 470,000. We get 32,910. 04. I'm just going to do the whole column here real quick. 33, 113, 75, 33, 331, 71, 33, 30, And I know my lines didn't line up. All right, so the amortization at the end, June 30, 13 is the 2009-10-04, which brings us to 473-053, 51. Now we have 3013, 113.75. And now we're at 476, 167.26, 330, 31, 71. I'll just write all this out. Bless you. So, 3, 8, 14, 47, 4, 081. 4, 367, 19, and then 4. So that's the entire table. And it's not lined up, so you've got lined paper, so you'll figure out which number goes where. So just the first one on June 30 is a debit to the 32,910.04, a credit to the 2,910.04, and a credit to the 30,000. So, because this one is a discount, once again, this is a credit. And you would do the same over and over and over and over again. But the other question they're asking in this particular one is assume, this is requirement number 2, that the company reacquired the bonds on July 1, 2015 at 104. So in 2015, these were callable bonds, apparently. They retired the bond issue. So we're going to debit the bonds payable. For the 500,000 face. We're retiring it at a cash price of 104. So 104% of $500,000. All right? Bond prices are always a percentage. So 104 times 500,000 is 520,000. $2,015. The book value at that date was this $864,878.37.
How did you get the 590,000?
The price of the bond retirement was 104.
Okay.
So if you multiply 500,000 times 104%, you get 520,000. So if you're having to buy a bond with a book value of $486,878.37, that's what you owed the bondholders. But in order for you to be able to get rid of this bond, you had to pay them $520,000. So did you make money on this deal or lose money? You lost money. So we have a loss on bond retirement. Of $33,121.63. And that's just the difference between the 500 and the 486, 878.37. And then we have a remaining discount of $13,121.63. And that's just the 486, 878.37 from the 500,000 face value. Yes, ma'am.
Is it 486
486 minus the 500,000 face is the remaining discount at that point in time on July 1, 2015. Okay? Is everybody comfortable with bonds? Yes? No? Maybe? Hopefully? All right, let's go to non-interest bearing notes. Has everybody got this last entry? Yes? Yes? We're going to do exercise 14-23 on page 55. All right, on this one, Webb Corporation purchased an asset from Shaw on January 1, 2013. Shaw accepted a 3-year non-interest-bearing note of $18,000 due on December 31st, 2015 in exchange for the asset. Neither the fair value of the asset nor that of the note is available. Webb, the borrower, has an incremental borrowing rate of 12%. So on 2013, January 1, we're going to buy an asset. We're going to do so by issuing a discounted notes payable. The note payable is going to be $18,000. So we're borrowing $18,000 by issuing this non-interest-bearing note. I, it tells you in the problem, is 12%. N is 3. So what table are we going to use for this? The note matures in 3 years' time. So it's only going to be one cash payment of $18,000 3 years from now. So it's table number 3. So if you go to table number 3, you go to column 12%, you go down to row number 3, you will get a factor of 0.711780. Add that, or multiply that to the 18%, you get $12,812.04. That's the purchase price of the asset. And so we have a discount of $5,187.96.
So you use table 3 whenever it's only one.
One payment, and then table 4 and 5, or if it's the same exact dollar amount over multiple periods of time. Because all table 4 is a summation of the various individual factors in table 3. So it's just adding them together for you to save you a step. All right? Good so far?
7 and on 7.17
0, yeah, that's a 0, not a 6. Yeah, sorry about that. Every once in a while, my zeros start looking like 6s. Okay? So, on December 31st, we need to accrue the interest expense. And then amortize the discount on notes payable. So if we take the $12,812.04 and multiply that by 12%, we'll get $1,537.44. So $1,537.44. Add that to the present value at the time of the transaction, and we now have a book value of $14,349.48. 2014. On December 31st, repeat the process. Interest expense. Only now we take the $14,349.48 and multiply it by 12%, which gives us $1,721.94. And the credit is to discount on notes payable. $2,015. if we take the 1,721.94, we now have $16,071.42. $16,071.42 times 12%. Is this 1,928.58? At which time the note matures. So we debit notes payable. And credit cash for the face value of $18,000.
And that was all in the entry, right, for December 31st?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you could have put the two debits together and the two credits together. I separated it out. But that was when we did not know the value of the asset. So in other words, we were buying an asset. It did not have a readily available list price, or it wasn't a building with a real estate appraisal tied to it or something along those lines. So how is the whole problem different if we do have a fair market value of what we're buying? Let's look at problem number 11 on page 59, and then this will be the last one before I let you go for the weekend. Lubbock Corporation acquires machinery from South Company in exchange for a $20,000 non-interest-bearing 5-year note on June 30, 2013. The note is due on June 30, 2018. The machinery has a fair value of $11,348.54. So it has a list price. We're buying it from, let's assume, a dealer in this particular case. And this is on June 30 that we're doing this. It's a machine. So the machine is $11,348.54. We're issuing a non-interest-bearing $20,000 note, which makes the discount $8,651.46. If we take the 11,348.54 and divide it by the 20,000 face value of the note, we get a factor of 0.567427. We know that n equals 5 because it's a 5-year note. It will mature to $20,000 even in 5 years' time. So what do we do in this case? Go to table 3. We're going to look at the row 5. N equals 5. And we're going to look across that row until we find a factor of 0.567427. And we're going to get, what is it? 12%. Now, they conveniently in this problem made the fiscal year end of Lubbock Corporation, June 30th, 2013. Otherwise, what would you have had to do at December 31st? You would have to take half a year's interest and half a year's depreciation. But they made it easy on us. So on 2014, and I'll just do this first entry. On June 30, we've got interest expense, and that's the 11,348.54 times 12%. And that's 1,361.82. And that's going to be the credit to discount on notes payable. And then it's also asking us what's the depreciation on a straight line 10-year with zero residual value. So that's $1,334.85. But that's neither here nor there. We had a whole chapter on depreciation. I'm not worried about that right now. So, okay? And then you would do this same thing, year after year for the next 5 years, at which point in time the discount on notes payable will go to zero, and we'll pay $20,000 to them for the machine.
So then the next entry, what do you use?
At the next entry, you're going to, I'll just do the math. You're going to do the 11,348.54 plus the 1,361 that we've already 82 that we've already amortized times 12%, and you're going to get 1,525.24.
2014, right?
Yes.
And then from there it's just the
That's 2015, sorry. Oh, no, that's 14. No, this is 14. This is 2015. Thank you. And you would do that same thing until you got to 2017, at which point you'd pay the note off. Yes, ma'am.
How you said about depreciation, would there be a cumulative depreciation?
Yes,
Yes.
So it'd be a debit to depreciation expense for 10% of this, which is $1,134.85. And then the credit would be to accumulated depreciation machinery.
And then you would do the exact same one for each.
Did that one every year, and you're doing that for 10 years, not the 5 years that, because you'll just keep depreciating it even after you pay off the note.
Okay.
So, yes? Everybody good with this? Make perfect sense? We'll start chapter 15 next